Good morning, everybody. I Mahesh Kumar, Assistant Professor in Tirthankar Mahavi University. Today's our topic related blog for medieval European historiography. In this blog, we will discuss introduction to medieval European historiography, the rise of Christianity and its impact on historical narratives, the monastic tradition and the preservation of historical records, the emergence of scholasticism and its influence on historical thoughts, the chronicle and their role in shaping medieval history, the influence of Islamic scholarship on European historiography, the transition from monastic and secular historiography, the emergence of national historians and the concept of nation state, the challenges of interpreting medieval historiography sources. Last, conclusion, the enduring legacy of medieval European historiography. The enduring legacy of medieval European historiography. In this slide, we see the title slide introduces the topic medieval European historiography, which explores the method and source used by historians in the medieval age and record the interpret history. This presentation will cover various aspects of historiography during the period, from main historians and their works to the influence of the church and the role monastic communities and preserving historical text. The image of medieval in manuscript highlight the primary sources at are central of this field of study. The examining these elements, we can gain a deeper understanding of how medieval people viewed their world and recorded the experience for prosperity. If we talk about introduction to the medieval historiography, English history compiled during the reign of Alfred the Great in the late 9th century, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle consists of series of annals documenting the history of Anglo-Saxon from the arrival of Roman to the early 12th century. These annals were maintained in various monasteries and provide a comprehensive record of significant events such as Pickling invasion, battle, and reign of different kings. The chronicle also offer insight into the daily life, culture, and governance of the Anglo-Saxon. This slide will explore the origin, structure, and content the Anglo-Saxon chronicle, highlight its significance as a primary source for understanding the early medieval period in England. If we talk about the role of scribes, scribes play a crucial role in medieval historiography by copying the preserving text. This text was essential for the transmission of knowledge in as before the printing press, monastic scribes and particular were responsible for producing manuscripts which involved laborious and meticulous work. They use materials such as parchment or vellum and ink made for natural substance. The process of copying text required not only precision but also the understanding of the content of a scribe, sometimes made or correction. These manuscripts were often illuminated and the design and illustration reflecting the skill and dedication of the scribes. This slide will examine the process of manuscript production and training and duties, the scribe and importance of their work in preserving historical records of future generation. Now we see medieval libraries. Medieval libraries were vital center of learning and preservation. Monasteries, cathedrals, and universities house collection and manuscript that include religious texts, classical work, and historical records. These libraries played a critical role in preserving and the intellectual heritage of the past and facilitating the study and transmission of knowledge. Monastic libraries, in particular, were often organized and managed with great care and catalog and the inventory to keep a track of their collection. The slide will explore the establishment of medieval libraries, their organization, and their significance in the broader context of medieval scholarship. By understanding the role of libraries, we can appreciate how knowledge was preserved and disseminated during the Middle Age. If we talk about colonial Renaissance, was a period of culture and intellectual revival in 8th and 9th centuries, largely associated with the reign of Charminglaze and his successor. This revival included the renewed interest in classical learning and arts as well as significant achievement in education and scholarship. Monasteries and cathedral school became center of learning where classical texts were copied and studied and new works were produced. The Carolingian Renaissance also saw the standardization of Latin and the development of Carolingian, a clear, legible script and facilitated the copying of text. This slide will examine the impact of Carolingian Renaissance and historiography, including the production of historical works and preservation of classical and early medieval texts. Medieval Latin. Latin was the lingua franca of scholarship and intellectual life in medieval Europe. It served as the primary language for writing and communication among educated individuals, transcending religion, dialected and languages of use of Latin allowed scholars from different parts of Europe to share ideas and collaborate. Medieval Latin, while rooted in classical Latin, evolved to include new vocabulary and grammatical structures and reflected the changing need of the time. This slide will explore the use of Latin and medieval historiography, its role in the transmission of knowledge, and its influence on the development and scholarly and historical writings. By understanding the significance of Latin, we can appreciate the medieval intellectual life. Now we see vernacular historiography. While Latin remained the dominant language of scholarship throughout the medieval period, of use of vernacular language in historiography began to emerge, especially in the later medieval age. Vernacular historiography allowed historical writing to reach a broader audience, including those who did not read Latin. This shift was partly driven by the rise of national identities and the desire to record the celebrate local historians. Notable examples of vernacular historiography include the Norman chronicles in England, the works of J.S. Foster in France, and the sages. This slide will explore the development of vernacular historiography, its impact on the dissemination of historical knowledge, and its contribution to the cultural and national identities of medieval society. Now we see medieval biographies. Medieval biography written by Bates was an important genre in medieval historiography. These biographies often focus on the lives of saints, kings, and notable figures, blending historical fact with historiographical elements. The purpose of those works was not only to record the achievement and individual, but also to provide moral and spiritual lesson for leaders. Medieval biographers employed a variety of literary techniques, including vivid description and decoder and dialogue, to bring their subject to life. This slide will examine the characteristics of medieval biographical writings, notable example and ways in which these were contributed to the preservation and interpretation of history. By understanding the nature of medieval biographies, we can gain insight into the values and concern of medieval society. Now we see hagiography. Hagiography, the writing of saints, lies was the significant aspect of medieval historiography. This work often followed a standardized format, highlighting the piety, miracle, and martyrdom of saints. Hi- Hagiography served multiple purposes. They provide model Christian virtue, reinforce the authority of the church, and offer comfort the inspiration of faithful. The lives of saints were often recorded the collections such as the Legenda Oreo and a Golden Legend by Jabocus and Voragine. This slide will explore the characteristics and hagiography, its role in medieval historiography, and its impact on the religion and cultural life of medieval Europe. By studying the hagiography, we can understand how the medieval church used the narratives to shape and promote its techniques. Now we see secular historiography. While much of medieval historiography was religious in the nature, there were also significant works of secular historiography. These writings focus on topics such as political warfare and the deeds of king and nobles. Secular historiography often blended historical narratives with elements of epic poetry and romance, reflecting the literary text of time. Notable examples include the Chronica Majora by Matthew Paris and the Historica Ramon Allingham by William Newburgh. This slide will examine the development of secular and historiography, its characteristics, and its contribution to our understanding the medieval society and politics. By exploring secular historiography, can we appreciate the diversity of medieval historical writing and different ways in which history was recorded and interpreted. Now we see Byzantine historiography. The Byzantine Empire, which lasted from the fall of the Western Roman Empire until the fall of Constantinople in 1453, produced a rich historiographical tradition. Byzantine historians were often highly educated and employed a variety of sources, including classical texts, official records, and eyewitness accounts. They wrote in Greek and focused on topics such as the history of the empire, religious controversy, and interaction with neighboring people. Notable Byzantine historians include Prospicius and wrote a war and the sacred history, and the Anacome author the Alexid. This slide will explore the characteristics of Byzantine historiography, main works, and the ways in which these historians recorded and interpreted the events of their time. By studying Byzantine historiography, we can gain insight into the unique historical perspective of the Eastern Europe Empire and Roman Empire and its contribution to the broader medieval world. Now we see Islamic influence. During the medieval period, Islamic scholars made significant contribution to the preservation and transmission of knowledge. including historical writing. The Islamic Golden Age, spanning from the 8th to the 14th century, saw advancement in various fields, including history, science, philosophy. Islamic historians such as Al-Tabari, Ibn Khaldun, and Al-Mashudi wrote a comprehensive historical works that influenced European scholars. The transaction movement in place like Toledo and Sicily facilitated the transfer of knowledge from the Islamic world to Europe. This slide will examine the influence of Islamic historiography on European medieval historiography, highlighting the ways in which Islamic scholars contributed to the preservation and development of historical knowledge in the medieval period. By understanding this influence, we can appreciate the interconnectedness and medieval intellectual tradition. Women in medieval historiography, while the majority of medieval historians were men, women also made significant contribution to the historiography. Women is religious order such as Hildegard and Venetian wrote historical works that reflect their unique perspective and experience. These writings often focus on religious themes and the lives of saints, but they also provide valuable insight into the social and cultural context of time. Secular movements such as Christian D. Paisan wrote historical and political works that challenges contemporary views of gender and authority. This slide will explore the contribution of women and medieval historiography, their perspective, and the ways in which their works have been preserved and studied. By recognizing the role of women in historiography, we can gain more nuanced understanding the diversity of medieval historians' writings. Now we see legacy of medieval historiography. The medieval historiography has had a lasting impact on the study of history. The matter, source, and perspective development during the medieval period and laid the foundation of modern historiography. Medieval historians' emphasis of canonical and use of primary source and blending the future and interpreting elements continue to influence historical writings today. The preservation of classical texts and the development of historical genres such as chronicle, annal, and biographical have saved the way and approach the study of history. This slide will examine the legacy of medieval historiography, its contribution to the late field of history, and the ways in which modern historians continue the draw and medieval methods and sources. By understanding this legacy, we can appreciate the continuity and evolution of historical writings from the Middle Age to the present. Now we see conclusion. The conclusion will summarize the main points covered in presentation, emphasizing the importance of medieval historiography in understanding the past. By studying the methods, source, and perspectives of medieval historians, we gain insight into the culture, religious, and intellectual life of medieval age. Medieval historiography not only preserved historical knowledge but also shaped the way in which later generation interpretation and the understood history. This slide will highlight the enduring significance of medieval historiography and encourage further study and explore of these fascinating fields. By appreciating the contribution of medieval historians, we can better understand the complexity of the past and the ways in which history is recorded and remembered. Now we see methodological approaches. Medieval historians employed a variety of methodological approaches in their works, reflecting the diverse intellectual and cultural context of their time. One common approach was the analysis method, which involved recording events year by year in the chronological sequence. This method was particularly popular in monastic communities where monks kept detailed annal of local and religion events. Another approach was the narrative methods, which combined historical facts with histor- storytelling elements of create engaging the interactive narratives. The method which used by historians such as Bed and George of Tours, who aim to provide both historical accounts and moral lessons. Medieval historians also relied heavily on oral tradition and eyewitness account in period when written records were scarce. Oral history played a crucial role in preserving the transmitting knowledge. Historians often incorporated oral testimony and folk tradition into their work, blending them the written source to create comprehensive historical narratives. The use of primary source was another key aspect of medieval historiography. Historians like Andres and William Malmesbury delighting the collected and analyzed document, character and letters of construction. Their historians, the critical evolution of source, including the comparison of between different accounts and assessment of their reliability, was an important methodological practice and helped ensure the accuracy and credibility of historical writings. Medieval historiography was also characterized by the technological perspective. Many historians were members of the largely, and their writings were influenced their religious belief and the technique of church. The often interrupted historian and historical events as manifestation of the divine and will the sort of highlight the moral and spiritual lesson to the learn from history. This theological approach added a distinct dimension to medieval historiography, reflecting the present influence of religion in medieval society. Overall, the methodology approach used by the medieval historians were shaped by the intellectual, culture, and religious context of their time. By examining this approach, we can gain a deeper understanding of how medieval historians constructed and interpreted their accounts of past and how their methods influenced the development of historiography in subsequent periods. Now we see preservation of text. The preservation of medieval historical text was a complex and ongoing process involving the effort of countless scribes, scholars, and institutions for many centuries. One of the primary challenges in preserving these texts was the fragile and peripheral nature of the materials used. In scripts, manuscripts were typically written on parchment and vellum, which could deteriorate over the due of environmental condition, handling, and other factors. To address these challenges, medieval scribe book great care the production of maintenance of manuscript using high quality materials and storing them in controlled environment and wherever possible. Monasteries played a crucial role in preservation of historical text. Monastic libraries housed vast collection of manuscripts which were meticulous catalogued and maintained by dedicated librarians. Monk copied and recopied text of ensure their survival, often adding glosses, annotation, and some commentaries that enrich of original work. The practice of manuscript illumination, which involved decorated text with elaborate illustration and designs, also held the protected and preserved manuscript by making them valuable and precious object. The transmission of text across different Regions and culture were another important aspect of preservation. Medieval scholar traveler extensively bringing manuscript with them the engaging knowledge with other learned communities. This exchange facilitated the separate and preservation of historical texts as work copied one origin could be found and preserving another. The translation of text into different languages such as translation of classical works from Greek and Arabic into Latin also contribute to their preservation and accessibility. Despite this effect, many medieval texts were lost over time due to war, invasion, natural disaster, and other climates. The destruction of libraries and monasteries, such as the breaking right of monastic communities in the British Islamic, resulted in the loss of countless manuscripts. Additionally, the transition from the manuscript culture of print culture in the Middle Age and early Renaissance brought new challenges as some texts were not copied into print and were subsequently lost. Modern effort to preserve medieval texts involve the use of advanced technology such as digital imaging and the online database, which allow scholars to create and share high quality reproduction of manuscript. This technology helped to protect regular original and make medieval texts accessible to the global audience. By understanding the historical effects and challenges in the preserving medieval text, we can appreciate the dedication and ingenuity of those ensured the survival of these invaluable source of historical knowledge. Now we see impact of the printing press. The invention of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg in mid 15th century had a profound and transformative impact of historiographical and the preservation and dissemination of knowledge. The printing press revolutionized and production of books, making it possible to produce multiple copies to text quickly and accurately. This technological innovation marked the beginning of new era in the transmission of historical knowledge. One of the most significant effects of printing press was the increased accessibility of historical text. Prior to printing press, manuscripts were laboriously copied by hand, making them rare and expensive. With the advent of printing, books became more affordable and widely available, allowing a larger audience to access historical works. This demonstration of knowledge contribution to the spread of literary and education as more people were able to read and study historical texts. The printing press also facilitated the standardization of the text before printing manuscript offer contained variation and effort introduced to scribe during the copying process. Printing books, on the other hand, would be produce the consistent text in reducing the livelihood of descriptions and ensuring great accuracy. This standardization by particularly important of historical works as it helped preserve the integrity of historical records and interpretation. The dissemination of printed historical texts across Europe led to the creation of more interconnected scholarly community. Historians and scholars would now share their works more easily, fostering intellectual exchange and collaboration. The widespread availability and printing books also allowed the comparison of different historical accounts, contributing to the development of critical histography. Scholar and analyze the technique multiple source, leading to more rigorous and sophisticated historical methodology. The printing press also played a crucial role in the preservation of historical texts, while many medieval manuscripts have been lost over time. The books that were printed in the early days and printing press have surviving a greater numbers. The ability of produce numerous copies of a text mean that even if some copies were lost or destroyed, other books remain. This fencing helped ensuring the survival of important historical works of future generation. Finally, the printing press had significant impact of the content and style of histography. The ability of reach a broader audience encouraged historians to write a more accessible and engaging style. Printed historians often include illustration, map, and other visual aids that enhance the reader understanding to text. The increased availability to historical works also spurred the production of new historical books as authors sought to contribute to the growing study of knowledge. In summary, the printing press revolutionized histography by making the historical text more accessible, accurate, and widely disseminated. Its impact on the preservation and transmission of historical knowledge cannot be overstated, as it laid the foundation of the modern study of history and the development more connected and informed scholarly community.